Good morning and welcome to Empowering Morning Conversations. Today it is 577th session. So thank you all for being always there. It's been a long journey and it's been a very, very interesting and fruitful journey being together in EMC and learning a lot. So with that, let's get started today's session. As you all know, Sudhipek sir is traveling Northeast India. He's been posting good pictures and videos, very interesting. So today I'll handle the session. So we have been listening to Sudhipek sir almost 5, 6, 7 sessions he has taken on conflict management strategies, right? So what are the different strategies? There are 5 different strategies he talked about. The turtle strategy, which is avoiding, which is basically lose, and the other person may win or lose. And bear strategy, which is basically accommodating. Basically, you lose, but you make sure that others are comfortable and others win. So lose, win. And then fox strategy, which is compromising. So whether you win it or not, make sure that other person doesn't win. So it is invariably goes into lose and lose. And then the short strategy, which is basically at any cost win. So others will invariably lose. So win-lose strategy. And the fifth one, which is most important, and that is what we all want to be, is the owl strategy, where it is win-win. It is collaborating and win-win. So these are the 5 possible strategies. People by default follow something or other, but every one of us can aim towards going to owl strategy of win-win-win. So where we don't compromise on our goals and others' goals, and also don't compromise on the relationship. And it is always possible to find the best of all the worlds, but it requires that kind of clarity, understanding, work, and it will be fulfilling to do that. Okay, so this is what we have been seeing last 1 week or so. So today, so this is something, the conflict strategy is used everywhere in life, not only in your work, you also do it in your personal life. So that's very interesting. The conflict strategy is very much studied and being researched and practiced in the organizational environment, which can be applied very much in personal life as well. So similarly, one of the topics we can explore today is stakeholder management. So this is very much applicable at your professional working environment as well as your personal life, right? So that's the topic of today, stakeholder management. So who's a stakeholder?
Everyone.
Yes, at one level, everyone, yeah. Yeah, that's a very broad statement. But to be specific to your environment, your particular goal, particular thing, how do you define who's the stakeholder?
First, yourself.
Yes, very much. Yes, so who are the other stakeholders? So whom do you consider as stakeholder?
One who is involved in our goal, like for example, parents would be one stakeholders.
Right, who's
Society
involved
would be one.
Yes, who's involved? Some people may not be involved, but still they may be stakeholders, because anybody who can have any influence or say in it can be a stakeholder. Right, you are right, Priya, very much. So who is a stakeholder? Anybody who has influence over what you are working on is a potential stakeholder. So why do you need to manage the stakeholders? So why do you need to manage the stakeholders?
Maybe we can see what all risk will be there if we don't include all the stakeholders. What all are the possibilities? What all things we need to do to reach our goals?
Yes. To achieve the goals of your own or others or combined, you need to manage the stakeholders. Otherwise, it is going to be a very arduous journey, very difficult. If you don't manage the stakeholders, each one may go into their own way. You may not easily achieve your goals. So to achieve your goals in a relatively simpler way and have a enjoying journey is possible if you manage the stakeholders. Yes, sir. Yes, Ridiger.
Can you elaborate about management, sir?
Okay, management. So management is, see, one is just letting things happen as it is, right? So that means what? It is default. So by default, things will go in a low energy mode where things can happen on its own with least amount of effort. So when you put least amount of effort, you may not get what you really want. So if anything creative, anything important, anything worthwhile needs some kind of energy and effort and order to put in. Otherwise, by default, the entropy keeps increasing. So if you want to create more order, you have to reduce the entropy. If you need to reduce the entropy, you need to put more effort. So if you don't do anything, it will go into default mode. If you want to come out of default mode, if you want to achieve something better, something creative, then you have to do some effort. You have to organize and make an order. So that is the management. The management of anything is basically coming out of the default mode and moving towards the creativity, towards the order, towards the betterment. So that's the management. That requires management effort. Otherwise, it will not happen just like that. So does it give some pointers?
On a lighter note, I want to know what is entropy.
Okay. So by default, what happens is things will go into the lowest possible state. So basically, there is no order. More and more chaos, more and more issues and problems. That is the entropy, increasing of entropy. So if you increase the order, then it is less entropy. Waste of energy is entropy. Right. So management is required to make the things in order to improve, to move towards creative mode. If you don't manage, it will go into default mode and it will go into the negative spiral. So that's what I broadly understand, Reddy Garu. So if you have anything else to add to that, please do.
No, I understood now, sir. Now, what I thought was initially, you always say that you manage people. That is a different meaning. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah, so it can be looked at as a manipulation. So
Yes.
when we say management,
Right.
it is we are not talking about manipulation.
Yeah, that's
No.
what exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I understand. No, when we are talking management, we are not saying you manipulate. We are saying do it in proper way, which helps you, will help others, and the whole journey of achieving your goal is much more smoother and better. And it is a win-win, not win-lose.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so why do you need to manage? So we broadly said that to achieve the goal, to make the journey itself is much more smoother, you have to manage the stakeholders. So one of the key aspects of managing the stakeholders is the communication, of course, right? So how do you go about managing the stakeholders? What are the steps involved? What is the first one? What is the step? What is the first step? First step in stakeholder management.
Listening.
Even before that.
Open to.
There has to be somebody to manage, right?
Yeah.
So identification of stakeholders is the first step, because many times we don't even know who are all the stakeholders. In fact, identifying the stakeholders is very, very, very key aspect of the whole thing, and it is the first step. So whether it is your professional environment or personal environment, identifying the stakeholders is the first one, first step. So how do you identify? And can you give some examples from your own life, either from your personal life or from your career? What are the typical stakeholders and how do you identify?
For anything which I have to implement in my company,
Yeah,
I need to involve all the people. Otherwise, if I just think that I can implement,
right.
I cannot. So first is I have to identify the stakeholders.
Yeah,
that's very important.
Correct. So how do you identify? So look at what is this project or what is this goal you want to achieve, and see who all will be the influencers, contributors, who will get impacted, remotely, even remotely. Then list out so that the importance will be different. Some people will be directly involved and they are the major contributors, and some people will not be contributors. In fact, they can be detrimental. If you don't manage them, they will create problem for you, even though they don't have anything to do with that goal. If you don't manage them, they will put blocks into that, right? So typical example is the government, right? Even though government may not be directly getting impacted, but they can put block if you don't manage them, right, in your projects. So, what is a typical similar issue in government equivalent? Not exactly government equivalent, but something very, very important stakeholder in our day-to-day life, our life. If you want to achieve any goal in our life itself, one of the key stakeholders who can create problem if you don't manage.
Your spouse?
No, that is given. That is absolutely, without the spouse, the key contributor, right? You can, if you're saying whether your spouse is a key contributor or not, you have a big problem. Beyond that. But it is related to spouse. So today it is dialogue between you and me only, Reddy. Let's continue. Okay, it's basically spouse's mother, the mother-in-law, right? If you don't identify the mother-in-law as the key stakeholder and manage, you will invariably get into trouble, whatever the life project you have. Does it ring bells?
I don't agree with that, sir.
Okay. So what's your perspective?
In the broad way, I can say the family members.
Yes, definitely family members. But why I'm bringing this mother-in-law stuff is that is like, one thing which we invariably miss out, but it has a deeper impact. Why? Because whether you are a female or male, in your your life, because the mother is the one who takes care of you, right? So the influence of mother on anybody is too deep, right? Even after you grow, right, and have your own family, still the influence of mother is very, very deep. Okay, if you don't recognize that and manage, and see your own mother, you will know how to manage to the extent possible. But your spouse's mother has deep impact on your spouse and in turn on any goal you work with your spouse. So this is one thing we invariably miss out. That is why I'm bringing that out.
Yeah, I never had any problem with my mother-in-law. That's why it didn't occur to me.
Okay, no, need not be problem, even positive way. They can really contribute to the project in a very, very positive way. So you should make use of that. I'm not saying, when I say manage, that doesn't mean that you have to manage only the negative things. You should manage positive also. Let's say there is some stakeholder whose presence is going to really contribute a lot to the project. You should manage them. You should communicate with them. You should get the best possible thing from them as well.
Yeah.
So Taki, we have been talking about stakeholder management, both in the professional environment as well as personal life. So the first step, what is the first step is what we are discussing, which is identifying the stakeholders.
Yeah, this is a nice point you said about this mother-in-law. I was also thinking in another perspective that the great impact on our kids.
Yes.
Because they are their grandparents.
Absolutely.
One thing I want to add is now my father-in-law and mother-in-law is here in UAE, just came for a visit. So their love is, they will not get, this is one of the best gifts we can give to them, I felt. And my parents just lost recently. So they are the remaining. So I felt this is very important. We have to provide them that love to our kids. So that's also important. The influence of them on our spouse also impacting us. We are thinking why they are like this, because maybe there is something indirectly affecting through this their parents, means our spouse parents. So that's a nice point I feel. These all are stakeholders in our life. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and invariably we underestimate or miss out. So that's what I brought it out. But and it is natural that the mother-in-law has deeper impact on any project you undertake in your life.
Yes, it is very, very important one, and they are the one guiding, even controlling us indirectly. We don't know what's going on, so that should be in account. Right.
So typically in career, unless you are a owner, founder of the company, when you are in the middle management and other positions, your projects are relatively shorter time frame, right? It could be in terms of months, years, not more than a decade or so, right? Even however the big project you are in, right? So there managing the stakeholder is very key point, important thing. But you look at the projects in your life, right? Getting married or having kids and raising them up. So each of them are like projects spreading across multiple decades, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? So the goals you want to achieve, the projects you undertake in your personal life are much more longer, much more deeper, much more important. It has long lasting impact on your life and others' life. So there, identifying the right stakeholders is and managing them is very, very, very important. Because if it is some office project which spreads across 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, or even 1 year, 1.5 years, it's okay, it is done. And then you move on to the next project. Whereas in life, it is not so. You have to really identify all the key stakeholders and manage them for long term. Okay, so the first step is identifying the stakeholders. What is the second step?
Seeing the impact that they have in our goals, like how much impact they have.
Yes, absolutely. Identifying the influence and what influence they have, what stake they have in the project you're undertaking, the goal you're undertaking. You're absolutely right, Priya.
They're like if they are the primary stakeholders or the secondary or the tertiary one, depending
Yes,
upon their.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And then accordingly, you have to plan the whole thing on how to manage them. So who are the other stakeholders? Beyond people, can there be other stakeholders? But ultimately, everything boils down to people. But there could be some organizations, entities, there also can be stakeholders. So first thing is identifying the stakeholders, whether it is people or organizations or anything else, and then understanding their expectations. And the second step is analyzing the level of influence of each stakeholder, levels of their interest, what is the kind of influence they can have, what is the power they have, what kind of engagement they will have, what kind of communication required for them. So these are the two key aspects. So can you identify, let's say, in your personal life, who are the key stakeholders and what is the kind of influence they have? Any examples?
If I talk about my career choices,
Yeah.
so primary stakeholders is always me, my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and secondary is my siblings. They don't have that much impact on it, but yeah, if whatever choices I make, they are also impacted by it.
Correct.
And then there are my cousins because they are also involved. So when I make a decision, they are involved in it.
Right. And who else can influence? Who are the other stakeholders?
And who else?
Can influence the career choices or making career choices easier, helpful.
I guess the organizations in which I'll be applying or not.
Yes, and it could
The
be your
selection
mentor.
process.
It could be your mentors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. Right. So yeah, here you can also classify who are the primary stakeholders and who are the secondary stakeholders. And then accordingly, you have to structure on how to manage them, how to communicate with them. Okay, so what is the third step? First one is identifying the stakeholders. Second one is identifying what kind of influence or power or impact they can have in the project or the goal you have. So what could be the third step? Okay, it may not be obvious. One of the things, it need not be necessarily third step. One of the steps is identifying the triggers, identifying their perceptions. So the stakeholders' perceptions and triggers. So what triggers them positively or negatively, right? That you need to understand. So you want to go for a particular career, whereas your key stakeholders may not like it. They may have negative perception about it or negative experience about it. They will say, no, no, don't go for it, right? Whereas you know that it is important for you. So you need to understand their perceptions and their triggers. They may come from their own perception, their own experiences, which may not be relevant for your goal, but they can really influence you, right? So somebody may say that no, teaching is not a great job. Don't go for it. That is their perception, but that doesn't mean that you have to just listen to them or just ignore them. So you have to manage them. So you need to understand why they are saying it, and how do you manage them? How do you explain to them that while that is your experience, I think this is important for me. to get into this. So identifying the triggers, list of potential known triggers for each influence, for each stakeholder. Estimate the impact of the reactions. So when the trigger happens to the stakeholders, what kind of impact it can have. And then accordingly targeted communication or mitigation of the problem. And also identifying the alternate solution if it is really going to be an issue, the current way it is going. And then leveraging stakeholders' perception. Some people may have great perception on your goal, and they may want to help you a lot. So they may have different views and ideologies or same view. If they have different views, you can learn from that and then implement that. If it is same view, they can support you a lot. So look for opportunities that may arise based on their perception. Build a relationship based on trust, transparency, and mutual benefits to all stakeholders. And there should be honest engagement and trust building behaviors with stakeholders. So the third step is to identify the triggers and identifying the perceptions and leveraging them. So that's the third step. Yes, Shakti, you have something to say.
Yes, sir. Sir, most of the time with the stakeholders, the problem is the common goal is very clear, what we want to achieve it. But what problem we are facing right now, it's, for example, if we are having a common goal and then the time, by what time we need to achieve this. Most of the time issues are coming in that. We are telling that, okay, within 2 business days, we can achieve it, but they won't expect that, okay, no, within 1 business day, you need to complete this. That is the major issues or conflict we are facing, how to handle that.
Right. So, so the first point you said that goals are clear, even that is not necessarily true. Many times the goal itself may not be clear to the stakeholders. So it is important to clarify that this is what is the goal and this is the common goal which all of us want to work together, right? So clarifying the goals itself is very important. It has to be reinforced continuously.
Yes,
right?
Yes, we are doing that.
Right. So then the once everybody understands the goal and the benefit of achieving that goal, then you need to understand their influence and then take their inputs accordingly. So work together as a team, right? See, just because somebody expects something that goal to be achieved within shorter time frame or some deliverable to be given in shorter time frame than what you expect, that doesn't mean that it is not the right expectation, right?
Yeah, true. Because in my case, okay, if some production incident, something is happening, okay,
Right.
Immediately that business analyst, whoever is approaching my teammate, okay, this is the topmost priority work you have to work on,
Right.
okay. But we do have a lot of commitments, okay. So that not to be the case of topmost priority for us right now, because some workarounds are there, okay, they can manage somehow. But that's how the conflicts are coming.
Yeah, so that's where you have to apply the conflict strategy. So one thing is when the stakeholder is expecting certain things which doesn't seem to be possible, one thing you can always ask is, what can they contribute to make it happen? You can always come out with and say that, yes, right now, given this situation and the resources, this is the timeline possible, or this is what is the goal, this is what we can deliver, right? If you want different kind of expectations, different deliveries, different timelines, then these are all the additional resources, additional things required. So they will listen. If they can provide, well and good. Otherwise, you can say, so basically give them the alternative. Don't, when the stakeholder expects certain things, there is no point in saying yes or no. You should always present multiple options, right? You can say at least 3 options, if not 6, 7. Right? If you present multiple options and say this is what is the requirement if you want this, then they will see. That is how you make them part of the whole journey, right? More and more you present that, they will understand. Then the credibility and trust starts. Then over a period, they will listen to you. They will say, okay, when Shakti says that this is what it is, I think she would have analyzed all the perspectives and it must be true.
Okay.
Right? So that trust will come only when you truly are interested and put effort to analyze and look at different perspectives and choose what is more appropriate for the situation.
Okay. Got it, sir. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the other steps involved in managing the stakeholders? So first one, we said identifying the stakeholders. Second one is identifying their influence or impact. And third one is identifying their triggers and their perceptions and managing them. So what is the other one? What are the other steps involved in stakeholder management? Key aspect, which I think Ridiger raised at the beginning itself. Continuous communication. So at all times, you have to really keep the stakeholders updated, bring them into discussions, right? So that is out of all the things, this is one of the key things. Without this, it is very difficult to succeed. So you should have some kind of communication plan to keep the stakeholders in loop, keep them updated, and get their perspectives, their inputs. So that's very, very important thing. So this is true for our the personal projects more. In personal projects, what we do is we take it for granted. We assume that they will know or they will understand. At least the office projects, we do communicate formally. Whereas the personal projects, which are very, very important for our life, which has a lot of impact for all of us, we really miss this communication part of it. So coming out with a good communication strategy is very important to manage the stakeholders. So determine the preferred method of communication. Some people may like in a particular way, somebody else will like it in a different way. So you should fine tune your communication mechanism for each stakeholders, particularly the primary stakeholders and others also. Stakeholders are different and therefore their preferred communication means can never be the same. So you have to fine tune. Facilitating stakeholder communications recurringly is essential, continuously and recurringly. Update stakeholders regularly and not assume that quiet one is a happy one. If some stakeholder is very quiet, that doesn't mean that that person is happy and that person is going to really contribute. I think that is, you have to communicate more with them as well. Create an expectation for the stakeholders on how the communication will be and how they can always expect and receive the updates. So set the expectations to the stakeholders on what they can expect. Right? So these are some of the key steps. So we looked at 4 steps. So any thoughts, any inputs, any ideas?
I think overall communication is the key, sir.
That's right, yeah. So anybody else would like to? Yes, Shakti.
Yes, sir. Overall, the communication is the key. But
Right.
most of the time when we are going and communicating with them, some conflict is happening, then we are giving up, then we are not trying the alternative ways to communicate.
Yeah, exactly.
The initial volunteering things is there. After that, if something's going wrong, then we are giving up. We are not looking for possibilities.
Yes. So that's where see, conflict, we looked at 80% of your life, there will be some conflict or other, because when you are dealing with others, there will be different points of view, different expectations. So you should know how to manage the conflict situations. You cannot give it up. Right? So, yeah, in fact, you should manage yourself also. You are the key stakeholder, like Vertigo said at the beginning. So it is possible that you yourself will go against the goals and you yourself may give up, right? So then you have to motivate yourself. You have to communicate to yourself as well. Okay, any other thoughts? So today it is very silent from many people, particularly Shanti ma'am. Are you okay? Anybody else would like to say anything? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it is about the stakeholders in our whole life. I mean, so it was just
yeah. Stakeholder for anything. See, whatever you want to achieve in life or in professional environment, you need to identify the stakeholders relevant to all those things. So in your life also, let's say you want to make your kid educated in the college, right? In a particular way. So then you have to identify the stakeholders for that also, right? Or you want to become a particular kind of person. Then you have to identify the stakeholders who can help achieving that.
Yeah, this is a big task. I also experience means, if you do some, you keep some goal or something, especially if you want to go for a dating or you have to give a good physique, there will be a lot of comments from surrounding, especially the peer pressure will be difficult. That's the one we are losing the momentum when we are not considering all those because they have entirely different perspective. So how we can, uh, them to enroll that our perspective or sometimes we have to be fight alone. So that is will be difficult. How to fight alone.
But if you identify and manage them, then there is a good possibility of not having so much of strain and so much of issues. Yes, and also, one of the other key thing in identifying the stakeholders is also to identify somebody who is going to really help you, who is going to encourage you in your endeavor, right? They may not be immediately obvious, but you can identify somebody who can really help you, who can encourage you as well, and make them as part of your stakeholders.
Yeah, the thing is, if their perspective, it is only the selfish, the benefit of us, then there will be less enrollment. So
correct.
We have to enroll them also. It is for a whole benefit, not only if it is affecting me, then how it can influence others or our family. So that one we have to communicate properly. Then that's only it will be. Otherwise, you have to be in the different space and do all the things alone. So
that's right. Yeah. So when you are achieving some goal, it has to help others also. It cannot be just your only selfish stuff. Yeah. Yes, Shanti ma'am.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'm not feeling well. That's why.
Oh, okay.
I'm very sorry.
Oh, please take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we can stop here. There are some more steps also, but I think we will stop here. So anybody would like to say any shairis or anything else you want to add? So Venkateshji, maybe you can say some shairi today.
I want to say a Tirukural.
Yes, Shanti ma'am.
Even இது செய்யும் என ஆய்ந்து அவன் அது கையில் விடல்.
Yeah.
So, this may be the appropriate Tirukural for this day.
Yeah, absolutely. Analyze and identify who can do what, and then assign appropriately the task to that particular person who's capable, who's good at. Is that right, Shantima?
Sir.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes. So, Reddy Garu, your final words, and then we'll close it.
Thank you, sir, for the nice and brief, very brief session on stakeholder management. I'm still trying to understand and how to proceed with this, both in my family and my corporate. Let me take the first step today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for being here in EMC, every one of you. So let's again meet tomorrow, 7 a.m. India time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Great session, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.